Hey, it's Dr. Claw here to help you figure out how to get started with your assignments in monsters and early British literature. So there are lots of explanatory videos in this class because we do meet entirely online, so I don't have the opportunity to tell you these types of things in person. So anyway, this is one that will walk you through how to get started with the assignments. And we're starting out here on our home page. The assignments require you to read and think about texts. Therefore, the first thing you need to know is how to find the text that you're going to be reading. There are two ways to do this. You can click on the syllabus, which will take you to the syllabus Google Doc that I've created. And amongst all of the informational stuff, you'll find a link to the different readings. You can also click specifically on the Readings tab, and I have created a Google Doc that has only the readings in it, just so that you can kind of get to them really quickly. Now, I'm using Google Docs for these because, as you know, I'm writing this course fresh. We're doing a whole different format, so some of the things in here are still a work in progress. And you'll see, for instance, here that I haven't completed the citations for all of the text that we're looking at, though all of them do have links. Because we are using OER texts, which are open educational resource texts, you might find accessing them a little circuitous at first until you get used to it. So for some of them, it's really simple. You control click and navigate to the link, and it will show you exactly the text you're trying to look at. For some of them, you might need to do a little fiddling. So a lot of our texts are going to come from Project Gutenberg, which is an amazing open source resource where people have typed up sources that are out of copyright. And anyway, so a lot of them, you're going to end up on a page that looks like this. So you'll have a few different format options for how you want to read it. You can read it online. This will look just like a web page. You could download it as an EPUB file if you have an e-reader that works with that kind of device. You could download it as a Kindle file if you have a Kindle or the Kindle app. You can download it as plain text. So as I checked through these resources to make sure that they were good copies, since I was trying to avoid assigning you a textbook, most of the time I was looking at the HTML version. So regardless, you should be able to access all the information you need in the HTML version. Now, the other thing to look at is, does the text name indicate something specific about a section that you're supposed to read? This is very important for the Travels of Sir John Mandeville and the Topography of Ireland, because both of these are long texts, and I'm actually only asking you to read a few chapters of these long texts. So here we see that you're going to read chapters 4 and 22. So here, usually the Gutenberg text will have some kind of table of contents, which they do here, and you'll see that chapter 4 right here has a link to it. And you can click on that link and it will take you directly to that chapter. So you'll read all the way to the end of this chapter. Once you hit chapter 5, you're done with that one. But remember, you're also supposed to read chapter 22. So you'll want to scroll back up to the table of contents and find 22 right here. And that will take you there. Okay, so then you'll read all the way through chapter 22. And that's how you would work with a Project Gutenberg text. Some of our longer texts are also in Project Gutenberg. So for instance, our work on the Fairy Queen will be there. However, a lot of the resources we're looking at will come from the Clemson Library. Most of those have permalinks, so the URL will not change and it has nothing to do with who's logged in. Whereas you might see that the URL when you're searching for library materials has like libproxy and your username and everything, but these are all permalinks. So for instance, the Beowulf text we're looking at, you'll click on it and you'll look for the Connect to Pascal ebook, or there might be some other indication of a link there. When you click on that, it will ask you to sign in to your Clemson Library's electronic resources. Make sure you've typed in your CUID without the @clemson.edu, and you've typed in your password, and you'll click submit. Once you've done that, it will take you to, again, another kind of repository where you will choose how to look at it. So you can choose a PDF. Sometimes you can go directly to the text itself by scrolling down to the table of contents. Up here you can see you can save and email and print some of them. Usually on Pascal, which is what we're working with in this particular example, there is some kind of limitation as to how much you can save or print or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind before you start downloading. So just make sure that there's enough room for you to download everything you need. Okay, other than that, everything should be pretty straightforward about the readings. So let's pop back over to our Canvas page and figure out how we then get into the assignments. So how do you know what to do and what you can do? Well, pop over to Modules, and you'll see there is Training Camp and the Forest of Monsters. This other stuff I'll still be cleaning up. That's stuff from previous 2130 class. Training Camp is basically the module you have to complete before you can begin the Forest of Monsters. So see, there's that prerequisite there. So you'll have to complete everything in here in order to start completing any of the other assignments in the course. So this is where you'll begin, and even though it's not due until May 24th, it's worth going ahead and getting started on these and kind of moving through them so that the rest of the course opens up for you. The one thing that will look different by the time you are looking at modules is Yellow Dig Post will no longer be here because you can't complete that before the end of the term. So I don't actually want that to be part of the prerequisite. However, I do recommend you start there, and if you have not already done your Yellow Dig Post introducing yourself, you should definitely get that started. Okay, but the other things that you'll do in Training Camp are 4 critical reading assignments and 1 claim evaluation assignment. So I already have a screencast explaining the critical reading assignment. That's back over here under the assignment explanatory videos. So you can see the critical reading assignment, and I'll have more of these up as the course goes along. So I'm not going to go back into how to do those. Make sure you watch that video in order to see how to do those assignments. I will talk a little bit about the claim evaluations. So this class will employ a claim formula, so an expected format that I want you to use to create claims about literature. And the formula is formatted in a way that it asks you to speak about what's going on in the text and then how the stuff that's going on in the text impacts the reader's understanding of the text. And I'm actually going to explain this in more detail on Yellow Dig, but you can see that there's a lot of explanation here about the claim formula and how to evaluate it. And then there are 7 claims that you will evaluate. And the reason this is part of the training camp is that I want you to start thinking about how do we analyze literature? How do we talk about literature? Because once you complete training camp, that you'll need to do this kind of analysis all the time. So a lot of the assignments are going to ask you to do this type of analysis, to either write your own claim formulas or really just writing your own claim formulas. So you have this practice in evaluating someone else's claim formulas. These come from a previous class. Their submissions for claim formulas that their classmates evaluated. So the only thing I have changed is any kind of spelling errors or punctuation errors. I haven't changed anything about the wording or anything like that because I do think it's important for you to be able to tell if someone is communicating clearly to you as an audience member or if they're not communicating clearly, and being able to evaluate how that happens. Okay, so those are the assignments that you'll want to complete for training camp, and you can start where you want. This one is a great place to start because it addresses the inherent difficulty you're going to encounter in reading all of your texts online. And so it has some suggestions and strategies for making the most of that and helping yourself retain more of that information. You might find the audience a little bit funny because it is written for librarians, but I thought that the tips in there were very clear and not dumbed down. You know, I felt like y'all are smart enough to be able to think critically about how you read online. So this is a great place to start. And then you'll have 2 works of fiction that you can start thinking about with your critical readings. And then this is literally a map. It's a medieval map that shows the world, but they're called Mappa Mundi. And these Mappa Mundi also show like monsters and marvels and sort of the things that people thought existed on the edges of the world. So it's a really great way to dive into thinking about monsters in early British literature, even though this is a visual text. So anyway, those will be your starting places for training camp, and you'll need to complete all of these in order to exit training camp. Now on Yellow Dig, I'm going to, I'll post this video and I will open up a pen for questions about this video and about your training camp assignments. And as we work our way through training camp, I'll start explaining more about the Forest of Monsters and how you'll start defeating these monsters and the types of work that you will do in order to defeat them. So as always, please tag me with the @ symbol on Yellow Dig if you have questions, or send me an email directly. Thanks for listening.